Baseball Hall of Fame, you're a voter again.
I took the biggest risk of all. I agreed to do a show with you.
Oh, my God.
DeMarcus Ware?
All right.
Double team Von Miller. If it's going to be one of those two guys, it's going to be Von Miller. He's had a great year. He's had an all pro year. He's had a Pro Bowl year.
That would have been the safe bet. I could have said
Well,
Von Miller,
but
I'm going to Marcus Ware because if I'm right, I'm going to look like a genius.
Well, are you picking the Indianapolis Colts? Because
No,
the safe
I'm not.
bet is, well, then why don't you pick the Colts and you'll look like a genius when the Colts win. Or you'll look like the idiot who won an Emmy sometime, a local Emmy.
You had a vote. You still have a vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Did you vote for Larry Walker?
Yeah, I did.
All right, because Larry got about 10 or 11% of the vote.
Yeah, enough to. I vote for Larry Walker because I'd like to see him stay on the ballot.
Okay.
And
do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
And people will question that, and I'll get all these letters and everything. He's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but let him stay around on the.
Do you think you got to watch him every night? Do you think he's a Hall of Famer? Let me ask you a question.
No,
let me ask you a different question.
No, I got
Do
an
you
answer.
think he was a guy with Hall of Fame talent, but for some reason fell short of having the numbers required to get into the Hall of Fame?
I think you can answer your own question.
I think the answer is yes.
I think that he had Hall of Fame talent.
Oh,
He was one
tremendous.
of the most they talk
Five
about
tool
five
players,
tool,
yeah.
because he could steal bases and did effectively.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at his numbers of stolen bases, they weren't 30 a year, but
He could steal a base.
22 out of 24
Yeah.
or 18 out of 21. He could hit for power, hit for average, led the league in average,
Field and throw.
field and throw.
Tremendous arm. You know what else? He was really a six-tool player because he was as smart or smarter than any other guy who was on the field at the same time as him. Really smart baseball player.
But there are two major issues. He wanted
Yeah.
to be a hockey player. He had a hockey mentality, and that's not a bad word. Mentality just means, because one guy I worked with once, when I said you have a football mentality, he thought I was putting him down. Mentality just means that's where you concentrate.
Yeah.
And he didn't play.
He spent far too much time in the training room.
He
And
would-
sometimes his managers and his coaches felt he was capable of
So
playing
he-
that day, but he just chose not
He
to.
won't ever get in it because he averaged like 140 games a year.
Yeah.
And who got the most votes this year?
Randy Johnson,
How many did he get? Because you know this because
93.7.
Yep, because you work for that radio station.
93.7.
Rocks the Rockies.
All the hits on 93.7.
Yes. Randy Johnson, he wouldn't hit against Randy Johnson. He'd take the day off.
That's right.
And
Big lefty. Larry was a lefty.
and Troy Rigg doesn't vote for him, and Larry has reached out to Troy and go, why don't you vote for me? I was there. I'm one of your own, and he said you didn't play enough games.
I'm gonna give you
He'd play 130 games.
I'm going to give you a story. We both knew Jim Leland. He was here for a year. And Larry Walker played for Jim Leland. Jim Leland once said, in fact, he said it to me and Bob Kravitz. Jim had a couple toddies, all right? And when he has a couple
Be careful
toddies,
you say that.
two things.
I'll tell you a story about that.
He chain smokes and he talks, all right? And he's not afraid to tell you what's on his mind.
And he plays piano.
And Jim told Bob Kravitz and I that he said it like this. When I was in Pittsburgh, I had Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla. They were the worst MFs I've ever worked with, but they played every day. He said, this MF, I don't know when he's going to play and when he's not going to play. Half the time I find him in the training room, I can't even write his name in the lineup unless I check with him first. So that was Larry's reputation.
And Jim Leland, because Larry Walker batted the three position, and why I didn't like Leland at the end or in the middle was that how in the world, if you have Larry Walker, who's in the trainer's room and decides not to play, he would stick whoever played in right field, and he'd stick a 193 hitter in the three positions. How difficult, Jim, is to rewrite your lineup?
He didn't want to take the other guys out of their comfort zone.
Well,
but I want to go
comfort
from
zone.
Larry Walker. So Larry Walker doesn't make it, and a lot of the
I'll tell you
reasons.
the stupidity of baseball, comfort zone. You take your best hitter and have him hit leadoff so he gets 5 at-bats a game and gets something going.
There's a case to be made there.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course it is,
Right.
but they know, Tony La Russa tried to change the game by actually putting the pitcher in the 8th spot. And everybody went, oh, God, what is he doing? Well, he was turning the lineup over, and it actually effectively worked where he won a bunch of World Series. Thank you.
All right, so Larry Walker is going to be kept out of the Hall of Fame in part because a lot of the voters look at his home road splits and say he was a creature of Coors Field. He was a talented guy, but his numbers were really inflated because of Coors Field. Hitters, atmosphere.
Well, how many people have been
ballpark,
inflated by numbers in Boston? That's a subject
That's
for
true.
another
In Wrigley
day.
Field, the home run numbers.
Forgive me.
All right. So, but my question is, how will Larry Walker's being denied bode for Todd Helton? Because a lot of the writers look at Todd's numbers before the humidor and say those numbers and Todd Helton also were a creature of Coors Field, were a product of Coors Field.
Well, Todd was the quarterback before Peyton Manning.
At Tennessee, yeah.
And he's got a street named after him that crosses the road with Peyton Manning. So they both have streets named after them. For truth in advertising, I went to the University of Tennessee, so I have a stronger feeling, and Todd and I were not overly close as friends, but he's a friend. And we'd talk about Tennessee. He's not going to make the Hall of Fame.
Because of that?
Because of not
because of
having
the
a
Coors
friendship.
Field factor?
No, I said to you, I think off the air. Did I say it on the air? Don Mattingly didn't make the Hall of Fame. His numbers were just as impressive with, and he, in whether you like it or not, and again, we're back to the subjective, he played in New York City. They have a lot more voters in the Hall of Fame because there are 2 teams there, and there's a lot of retired guys who have honorary baseball. I don't know whether you know how you could vote, but if a guy retires, he gets an honorary baseball Writers Association award. So guys that have been retired for 20 years are still voting.
Mattingly, by the way, had back issues, and if he had played another 3 or 4 years, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Like Randy Bradshaw, if he'd played another 3 or 4 years, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. Mattingly, Mark Grace was a similar player to Todd.
Not as much power, not as many RBIs.
He didn't get in. I think the Coors factor, I don't think anybody would consider the humidor. I think by the time he's up, that's not going to be an issue because it hadn't been around for quite a while. But Coors Field is still considered, it's Cape Canaveral, Cape Coors. So that's going to factor against him. His numbers the last 4 or 5 years were not that special.
Power numbers were down, RBI numbers were down, average was down.
His home runs, he's got doubles. And if you listen to those guys who do the broadcast, and you know who you are, they said every day, oh, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. It's going to be the saying. And every time I watch, because I watch 150 games either in person or on television. I like watching baseball. I grew up with baseball. And I heard it every day the last year he was in the league. And I kept saying, you guys are totally wrong. You're homers. And, of course, people in Denver are going to say he's going to make the Hall of Fame. He's not going to make the Hall of Fame. He's not going to make it on the first ballot.
It's a shame. He was a special hitter. He really was a special hitter. And not only that, people are totally disregarding his glove. He was one of the great fielding first basemen of his time.
Yeah, what a couple
one of the top 2 or 3 of his time.
2 or 3 gloves.
And a 5-time All-Star.
He was great at picking balls out of the dirt and stretching.
You really had to watch Todd Helton in batting practice to appreciate him.
But
he was a special.
Would you say that Randy
hitter.
Bradshaw was a special player? And
I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well.
But there are other factors working against Randy.
So let's say that Todd, because of his doubles, which passed Lou Gehrig, I think.
He's one of the top doubles hitters of all time.
And he's a singles and doubles hitter. He's a special player, but he's not going to get in the Hall of Fame. And it's not because he wasn't a special player. It's because of Coors Field. It's because he plays in Colorado. He played on dog-ass teams except for 2 years. And you know that. Played on dog-ass teams. They got to one. And so, if you want to blame me or blame the writers, go ahead. Why don't you blame the people running the Rockies that they never, except for a couple of years, never put together a quality team year after year after year. I felt sorry for Todd. I felt sorry for Todd the day they honored him and gave him the pony that I wanted as a kid. And they went out and they lost like 16-5. And it was
all right. Last thing, quick answer, because we have to get to the more social media. When Todd is eligible for the Hall, are you going to vote for him?
Sure.
Okay. There's at least one vote.